I'm your friendly neighborhood Web-Warrior Fanatic, and this video will be everything you need to know about Echo, the new hero that was just previewed for Marvel Champions from the Fear No Evil expansion. We'll be summarizing and recapping everything that went over in the live stream, and yeah, just diving into her kit right here. Okay, so Echo Maya Lopez, an alter ego, has a hand size of 6 and 9 hit points, so a little bit lower hit points here, with 3 recovery. She has a civilian trait. Practice makes perfect is her alter ego ability. As interrupt, when you change to hero form, you search your deck for an aspect or basic event and you add to your hand. So this is really good because on turn 1, when you flip from alter ego to hero form, you get to add, one event from your deck over to your hand as long as it's an aspect or a basic card. And you basically get +1 to your hand size for that first turn. So you're going to have 7 cards in hand. The extra economy, even if you don't want to play that card, it's still going to be very valuable. So very good ability there. Very similar to like Cyclops, where you can search your deck for a tactic upgrade and add to your hand. So just having that +1 to your economy on turn 1 is very good. Even if you don't actually want to play that card that you tutor, it's still good to just get that hand. So that is very, very nice to see. You guys know I love economy heroes. Then in hero form here, she has the elusive 2/2/2 stat line. That's what every hero wants here. So very well rounded. She has the defender and the martial artist traits here with a 5-card hand size, 9 hit points again. Watch and Learn is her hero ability here. As a response, after a player, so any player including the Echo player or another player, plays an aspect or a basic event, you can tuck that event under here from that player's discard pile. So she can steal events as long as it's an aspect card or a basic card from other players and tuck it underneath her identity card. Then if there are more than 3 tuck cards here, then discard all but 3 of those cards. So basically you can just have that cap of 3. You can over tuck, but then you just go back to always having 3, right? So this is a very cool ability. I think that for sure, she's going to be much better in multiplayer at higher player counts because then you can tuck cards under her without actually playing those events yourself, right? If you're playing in True Soul, you actually have to play those aspect cards or basic cards yourself before Echo is able to tuck them. In multiplayer, other players can play them and you can just tuck it as a response after your friend or someone else plays them. So much faster in multiplayer to get those tuck cards and build it up. And we want to build tuck cards underneath Echo because of this really cool card here, Photographic Reflexes, which she has 6 copies of, guys. That is like one of the most copies that any hero has of an identity specific card in their kit. We know that like some heroes like Wanda has like 4 copies of Hexbolt. Quicksilver has a bunch of copies of Always Be Ready. And then like T'Challa, Black Panther has a bunch of Wakanda Forevers. But Echo here has 6 copies of this card. And we've never seen this star here for the cost. So there's basically like no cost. Basically, you're never able to play this card because it has no cost, right? It's not like a 0 cost card or extra or anything like that. You just can't play this card. But if you're in hero form, you can discard this card from your hand to play an event tucked under Echo as if it were in your hand. Reduce the cost to play that event by 2. You cannot trigger Echo's Watch and Learn ability for that event. So this card is super duper cool because after an event has already been played, she can now play at a cost reduction for 2 as long as it's tucked underneath Echo. So this is really good, like we were saying, for multiplayer because your friend can play like an event like Haymaker, for example, and then Echo can, as a response, tuck that Haymaker underneath her, and then she can trigger the Photographic Reflex, discard this card from her hand, and then play that Haymaker as if it was, in Echo's hand, reducing its cost by 2, making it free to play. So yeah, in multiplayer, she can just play those events for free. In True Soul, you actually have to play the Haymaker yourself first, and then tuck it under Echo, and then you can discard the Photographic Reflexes, and then you can play that Haymaker, reducing its cost by 2. One thing to note with the Photographic Reflex is that we probably need some more clarification, but this is not an action. It just says, if you are in hero form, you can discard this card from your hand to play an event tucked under Echo as if it were in your hand. So one thing that I'm thinking about this is that you can definitely do it, probably, during the player phase, right? After someone plays a Haymaker, you might be able to even do this during their turn because it says if you are in hero form. However, if we're talking about like the villain phase, this can potentially mean that, after you already have a defense event like Desperate Defense tucked underneath Echo, if you're in hero form, you're still in hero form during the villain phase, you could potentially discard this card and then play an event tucked under Echo as if it were in your hand. So that Desperate Defense, you may be able to play that. I'm not 100% sure with the official rulings on that. We'll have to, get further clarification from Fantasy Flight Games. But I think that the way that it's worded here, we can actually do that, which is really interesting for her to be in protection and play defense events for a cost reduction of 2 here during the villain phase. So that can be super duper fun. one thing that we really talked about for Echo during our live streams, especially our prediction live streams, is how her ability would work, and how it would be thematic and fun for the character. In the very first Fear No Evil preview article that we got from Peter Shoemaker, he wrote here that, Echo is going to have a pre-built protection deck, and her playstyle will revolve around mimicking techniques of her allies and fellow heroes. And me and a lot of chatters, we were a little bit confused by this wording here, because what does this mean for the character? A lot of us were thinking like she would play like Rogue, who could steal events, which is very, very fun. But for Rogue to steal like an event like Cyclops' Ricochet Beam or like Magneto's Metal Shards, that's thematic for Rogue because her immune ability allows her to steal those other immune abilities. But Echo has Photographic Reflexes, right? So she should not be able to concuss a blast or like, have magnetism powers, right? So how is that going to work with Echo? We were very confused by that. And a lot of people were suggesting that, they would give her, +1 attack, +1 thwart, based on the allies or the other heroes that she's copying and mimicking. But like, that's not very unique and fun, right? Just getting like stat buffs is not as interesting as copying events. So I was very pleasantly surprised to see this ability. I think that Fantasy Flight Games, hit this like super duper well. I think that like this is exceeding my expectation for this, and is really encouraging to see this ability right here. After a player plays an aspect or basic event, you can tuck it under here, and Echo can Photographic Reflex that event. All aspect cards and basic cards are very simple, generic type of events. They're usually physical actions like a punch or a kick, which Echo can definitely copy with her Photographic Reflex. So it's very thematic to character, the way that they design this, but it's also very, very fun. That's what we want to see in Marvel Champions, guys. This design is like peak design. Even though I haven't even played the character, I can already tell they really put a lot of thought into this whenever they were designing her to make her very fun, but also very thematic and true to the character, right? I don't want Echo playing like, ricochet beams and like metal shards, because she can't do that, right? She has Photographic Reflexes. She's not a mutant. She can't steal mutant abilities. So yeah, that is just huge kudos to Fantasy Flight Games and all of the developers for being able to make this hero ability on point here and very thematic and very unique to Echo. This really makes her feel very different from the Rogue hero. One thing that I do want to talk about that a lot of people talked about during my live stream is how does this work with Spider-Woman, right? So if you're playing a two-handed game, or if you're playing Echo and someone else is playing Spider-Woman, Spider-Woman has these cards here in her hero kit, and they are aspect cards. So if we look at like Contaminant Immunity here, this is a 2-cost Spider-Woman card, 10 out of 15, but it says here this card is both a Spider-Woman card and a protection card. Now, what does this mean for Echo? Well, for Echo here, it says after a player plays an aspect or a basic event. This is technically an aspect event. It's a protection aspect event. So I would say that, in my personal opinion, I do think that if Spider-Woman plays this card, Echo is able to tuck this card underneath her identity card, and she is able to use Photographic Reflexes to play that event. However, that's not very thematic at all because, Echo does not have Contaminant Immunity. She cannot copy that ability from Spider-Woman. She also can't copy Pheromones, which is actually really powerful, to tuck this underneath Echo, have this on demand to play this leadership card right here, Stun and Confuse Enemy. That's just really good. Same with the Venom Blast right here. Echo, I mean, it's nice to have, but like, why is she able to copy these spider abilities from Spider-Woman? It doesn't really make sense. It's not really thematic to the character. So maybe we'll get further clarification from Fantasy Flight Games after Echo is released, and they'll say that, the official ruling, potentially we won't be able to use this with her, even though I think mechanically it makes sense, even though thematically it may not be, the most sensible thing. I think that probably, and a lot of people were saying this too in our live stream, that they may have just saw this from the legacy environment, and since Spider-Woman and the Rise of Red Skull is no longer in the current environment, and Fantasy Flight Games has said that they are not designing current environment cards with the whole entire card pool in mind. So probably they may have just seen this and we're just like, you know what, it's fine, that's in legacy environment. It's like just one miss right there, or maybe it was a short oversight. But either way, I am definitely going to play a two-handed game with Spider-Woman and Echo and steal all of Spider-Woman's cards because I think it's going to be super duper fun mechanically, even though it doesn't make the most sense thematically. Echo to be, Venom Blasting or like triggering Contaminant Immunity and stuff like that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun mechanically. So I'm not too mad about that if it does work. If it doesn't work, that's fine too. Either way, it's going to be a lot of fun, and I really like this interaction here with Echo, but we'll get some further clarification later down the line to see if that actually works. Let's take a look at the rest of Echo's kit here. So Echo also has her Study the Tape. This is a zero cost event. It's a tactic card as an action that you can trigger from alter ego or hero form. You search any player's discard pile for one aspect event, a basic event, or a copy of Photographic Reflex, and you add to your hand. So very versatile for Echo. She can dig for whichever event that she wants, like a Authority event, an attack event, a ready event, or even her own Photographic Reflexes if you want to get that instead and play one of your tuck cards. I think it's very good to have that extra versatility here for Echo. So definitely a cool card for her. Then we also have her American Sign Language card. So this is a 2-cost upgrade. It's going to be her main resource generator. You can exhaust this card as a hero resource. So Echo must be in hero form to trigger this. Generate a wild resource for an event being played by any player. That is very, very cool. I love the art here, with the sign language on the card. This card is pretty unique because if Gambit, for example, if he wants to play his Acrylic Charmer, which is an alter action, I believe that the way that this card is worded, Echo can actually use this as long as she's in hero form for the hero resource for her. She can exhaust it to generate that wild resource for Gambit, who is in alter ego to play that event, right? So any event being played by another player, Echo can exhaust this card for them as long as she herself is in hero form. Another great multiplayer card. However, I'm not a big fan of the restriction for Echo specifically because it means that this is her resource generator only for events for her, right? So she can't really do anything else other than generating resources to play for events, which, it's a little bit restrictive in true solo. If we look at Gamora, she has a resource generator that works for events and it's only 1 cost. Obviously, Gamora's resource generator is for attack and Thor events only. So I could see why this is a little bit more expensive. But if you compare it to like Captain America's Super Soldier Serum, that's a universal resource generator for anything. Of course, it's physical resource. This is a Y, which is nice. Yeah, it's like good and bad. Definitely, though, this card is very good in multiplayer to help other players, and it's good for aspect card events because a lot of them need a specific resource for the kicker. Like, for example, Dropkick will need only physical resources, so being a wild resource generator for events is definitely going to be a valuable card and helpful for a lot of different situations, which I think is very good. She also has her improvisation card right here. It's the 3-cost upgrade. Hero response after you play an event if it has the following traits: attack event, heal damage from Echo; defense event, remove that from a scheme; and authority event, deal damage to enemy. This card is very cool because it does not exhaust. So if you're playing a bunch of cheap events, like a bunch of 1-cost, 0-cost attack events or authority events, you're able to trigger these effects multiple times per turn and potentially get a lot more healing or a lot more damage or a lot more threat removal. So a very good card here, really synergizing with the attack, defense, and Thor events, while her other abilities here, like her hero ability, does not really care about a specific event. Like, this does not have to be for an attack event or a Thor event. So you can kind of build her more into just general events, leaning more into the hero ability, or you can really build her into attack, defense, and Thor events, and build her off of the improvisation, depending on how you want to play with Echo. Now, this might be the most hyped card in Echo's kit, and that's her identity-specific ally, Daredevil, Matt Murdock. Look at the art on this card, guys. Crazy, crazy cool. He's a 3-cost ally, 2 thwart, 2 attack, 3 hit points, defender, martial artist. Doesn't mean that the Daredevil hero will also have the defender, martial artist traits. Maybe because, the Echo hero has those 2 traits there as well. So this ally already has a good stat line for being a 3-cost ally. But as a response, after he uses a basic power, so whether he thwarts or attacks, you can reduce the cost of the next event that you play this round by 1. That's very good. One thing to note first is that it's the round, which means that if you have Daredevil activate, during the player phase, the villain phase is still a part of that round. So if you play a defense event, that next defense event that you play during this round is going to be reduced by 1, going into that villain phase. So that's going to be very fun, very unique. And one thing with this card is I want to give a huge shout out to Heroic Skeleton, which shouted this combo out, which I think is probably going to be the coolest combo with this ally. And that is with the Age of Apocalypse, this Sidekick combo here with side by side. I think that Daredevil may be one of the best candidates to ever Sidekick in the game of Marvel Champions. So this 1-cost upgrade, you can attach to any identity-specific ally you control. So for Echo, she can attach this to the Daredevil Matt Murdock ally. Then this ally becomes your Sidekick, Sidekick, and it has +2 hit points. After you make a base recovery, you heal 2 damage from the attached ally, that's fine. However, with the side-by-side here, this is a 2-cost event. Hero action, you can ready up your Sidekick, ready up your hero, and then choose one to either heal 1 damage from both characters, or both characters get +1 Thor and +1 attack until the end of phase. So this right here is not really an attack event, Thor event, or defense event. It doesn't have any of those traits here. So Echo will not be able to trigger her improvisation with that. However, she can trigger her watch and learn from that because it is an aspect event. It is a leadership event right there. So that's pretty cool. So she can tuck this card underneath her identity. Now, with Matt Murdock here, his ability is After he activates, reduce the cost of the next event that you play this round by 1. So he can make this card right here a 1 cost event after he activates. So a line that you could actually do is if you have Matt Murdock down and he's your Sidekick, he can, let's say, like attack for 2. Then you can play side by side from your hand, reducing his cost by 1. So it's a 1 cost event. You ready up Matt Murdock, ready up Echo, and you could choose to give them both like +1 Thor, +1 attack, for example. And then after you place the event, you can tuck it underneath Echo with her Watch and Learn ability right here. And then you can play or you can discard Photographic Reflexes to replay down the side-by-side here, reducing its cost by 2. So now it's free to play. Ready up Matt Murdock and Echo again. You know, obviously you activated with it, but then you can ready them up again and then like give them either healing or like another +1 Thor, +1 attack and just really build off of that. So really fun synergy there with Sidekick, which is still in the current environment. So yeah, guys, I think that Daredevil was probably one of the best allies to combo that with. And even if you're not playing Echo, you can still do Cameo for Daredevil for any other hero. So even if you're playing Peter Parker Spider-Man from the core set, even though he doesn't have the most synergy with events, if you still want to do that thematic team up with Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and Daredevil, Matt Murdock, you can still Sidekick him. And you can still use the combo with side by side and still get a lot of good value from both Daredevil and Spider-Man because this combo side by side and Sidekick makes Daredevil a great camo target for any deck. And that's just super duper fun to bring in this Daredevil ally for any deck. As long as you have, you know, the Echo deck here, you know, from Fear and Evil, you can be doing that. And yeah, I think that is super duper cool. I love the flare on this card. Follow my lead. Very, very cool here. He's kind of like a heli carrier if you can ready him a lot and share this ability, you know, multiple times, you know, per turn. So yeah, very, very cool ally there. Very cost efficient. Has a very high upside as well. Next, I do want to give a huge shout out here to my Sanai, who commented that Echo's identity card is 37A and 37B. So let's take a look at her identity card right here. Right, you guys can see right here, it says 37B for the alter ego, 37A for the hero card. And then my Sanai also says that Daredevil, card 1 out of 15 in her pack, is number 39. That is a very, very interesting detail. So if we look at Daredevil again here, he is number 39. Guys, number 38 was skipped. What could number 38 be? He says here that Hercules' labor and gift decks, you know, feature set-aside cards, number in between the identity and its 15 identity-specific cards. Storm's weather deck functions the same way, but Echo does not have a separate deck as a part of her unique mechanics. So, like, what could this be, guys? Very interesting. Could she have some sort of, like, identity-specific card, like an upgrade support that, like, starts the game in play? Originally, I was thinking that probably not. Maybe it would be another ally, but I think I was wrong about this. I think that is an oversight by me because obviously the ally would have to be one of those 15 number cards in the Echo deck. But yeah, this is very interesting because normally that extra card that's in between, you know, the identity cards and the 15 player cards, that's very integral to how the hero works, right? Like, for example, if we talk about like Wolverine's claws, if we talk about like X-23's claws, or like Hercules' labors and gifts, or like Iceman's frostbites, it's so integral that that's usually explained in the preview article. But in this preview article right here, you know, for Echo, it was completely skipped. So I'm not sure they're saying that for later. Is something going to be super duper hype, or if they just like chose to number that and skip 38 for like whatever reason. I'm not sure, guys, but let me know down in the comments, what do you think that number 38 could be? Very, very exciting, just thinking about like what it could be, because it's not going to be an ally, right? We already know he's a 1 out of 15 card here. So my comment here was incorrect, but I don't know. I don't know what that could be. I have no clue what number 38 could be. I feel like her kit already looks pretty good. It looks solid the way that it is. So like, what could that extra like number 38 card be? I don't know. For the rest of this recap video, let's go over the 4 brand new protection cards that were also previewed from this Echo article. 4 cards that will be in her protection precon. So the first one that I want to go over here is the Ronin card, which is pretty cool. So Ronin is a 1-cost upgrade. It's a title card, and while you do not control any allies, your hero gets +1 defense and retaliate 1. The flare here says, I am Ronin the samurai with no master. Very, very cool. Huge shots to everyone that told me that Echo actually donned the Ronin suit in the comics. And Hawkeye is another hero that donned this suit. I will give a huge shout out here. We're hopping over to the prediction livestream that I did a few weeks ago. And I will give a huge shout out here to Magenta Mountain 18, who shouted out that we will be getting a Ronin upgrade in Echo's precon that Hawkeye can use. And you know, the way that's worded here is not is not super specific. I think that he's going to get the check mark for this. I think that this is correct. It is a Ronin upgrade, for Echo that Hawkeye can use. But what we did not expect was that any hero can use this to build out their defense stat. That is insane, guys. And this is really showing the direction that Marvel Champions is going in, where it is incentivizing players to not play with as many allies. And in protection, I think that that makes a lot of sense. I'm really happy about that direction too. We can compare this to the armor vest from the core set, which is also just a 1-cost protection upgrade, where you just flat out get +1 defense. So if you look at this card, you're like, okay, maybe that's power creep, but it's not, which is what I love about it. You only get this effect while you control no allies. You get +1 defense and you gain retaliate 1. What a great way to add another plus defense stat to the game. My first thought here, along with chat, was that this card will go great on Nightcrawler, who can now get up to 8 defense, guys. Nightcrawler has a defense stat of 3 already. With his colors, he gets another +1 defense. With armor vest, another +1. Defense conditioning, another +1. Ronin suit here, another +1, that's 7. And then with the defensive specialist upgrade, he gets another +1 defense. That's 8 defense for a hero, which is absolutely insane. You guys may have seen my games where I play as Nightcrawler with no allies in the deck, taking on like Expert Magneto. Nightcrawler is already very good in protection with no allies. This makes him even better, guys. 8 defense can even block out hits from Ronin perfectly, taking no extra damage, which is insane. I really love this card, and you get a retaliate 1 as well, which also works with Nightcrawler as well, with his retaliate 1 that he can also obtain. So very, very cool flair. Works with a lot of cool heroes. I think Nightcrawler is definitely the one that I want to try the most with this Ronin suit. Another very cool card that we got in protection is the Army of 1 here. So this card, just like the Ronin suit, scales with having less allies, right? So this is a 1-cost event, and as a hero action, you ready up your hero. That in itself is already crazy, because if we look at Limitless Stamina, which is a 1-cost basic card to get the ready, that's a very good card, but it's only for heroes that have at least a 14 hit point, printed on their identity card. So not all heroes can use that card. This card right here, every single hero can use as long as you're playing in the protection aspect, and you get a 1-cost ready. Very, very good. However, increase the cost of player's card by 1 for each ally you control. So if you have no allies, it's insanely good. If you have 1 allies, it gets a little bit worse. And if you have 2 allies, making this a 3-cost card is not going to be super efficient. So you want to really have 0 allies when you're playing this card, which I think is definitely a good incentive to play a deck with no allies again. You guys know I love allies, but I like to build, decks with no allies. I actually just played, huge shout out to Zalika, one of my channel members. Like literally just yesterday, I played a game with Wonder Man with no allies, doing a Mortal Kombat theme, and that was very, very fun. So I like my no ally builds as well, and this really incentivizes the players and gives you very good reasoning to build a deck with few allies. And I think that eventually with the card pool with more cards like this, no ally decks may be able to compete with like ally recursion leadership decks far down the road in the future, which would be very, very good and healthy for the game. So I'm very excited to see this direction that Marvel Champions is heading towards. And Army 1 is a very, very unique card here. Very fun. The number 1 hero that I'm thinking about with this card is for sure Hercules. You guys have probably heard me say this a lot. I think that Hercules' best card that you can include in any Hercules deck, and I'll include, is Limitless Stamina. That is the best card for him, because where you're talking about his Hydra Labor, where you had to defeat the Hydra minion, or his side scheme Labor, where you had to throw off that side scheme with Assault, you always want that extra ready on him. And even late game, you want those extra readies for him to be attacking a lot, for him to be healing after defeating minions and stuff like that. So readying is what Hercules wants the most, no matter what. And Limitless Stamina is all include. Play protection, include 3 copies of this. Now he has, with the 3 Limitless Staminas, 3 Army of 1s, he has 6 readies. He also gets 2 more readies with his Son of Zeus in his kit as well. So 8 readies in his kit is going to be so powerful, guys. Really love this card for Hercules. A few people mentioned that, it has anti-synergy with Amadeus Cho, because when Amadeus Cho is in play, this card will be 2 costs. Well, normally, on turn 1 is where I need to ready the most. And if I'm drawing Army 1 because my first labor is the Hydra minion, or if my first labor is that thwarted side scheme, just having more readies, I think, is always going to be good. And I can always just have Amadeus show a chump block, or just have him activate to get rid of him with cost for damage if I need to, right? He's good late game, but late game I'll have the economy with Hercules to play Army 1 for 2 costs anyways, right? So I think this card is still really good for Hercules, and I think that it makes Hercules best aspect protection now. So I am very excited to try out this card with Hercules. Another cool card that we got here is In Harm's Way. This is a 3-cost event, and similar to the Army 1, you increase the cost to play this card by 1 for each ally you control. I love cards like that. This card is an attack and a authority event, similar to cards like Multi-Talented, which can proc the card Improvisation from Echo. Because it's attack and authority event, you can trigger this to heal damage from Echo, and you can deal damage to enemy from just playing one of this In Harm's Way. So this card right here is a hero action attack and thwart. Deal X damage to enemy and remove X from a scheme where X equal to your defense. Guys, that is insane for high defense heroes. We just talked about Nightcrawler, and I do think that Nightcrawler is the best hero to use this card with. If you get up to 8 defense, this is a 3-cost event if you have no allies. Deal 8 damage to enemy, remove Aether from a scheme. What the heck, guys? That is absolutely insane. It's great for Nightcrawler to do more damage and also just an extra throw move that he doesn't even need. Crazy, crazy powerful card. But one thing that I love about this card is that I do think that it is a very balanced card, even though it is very usable and very strong in its own right. Right? There's 2 things that kind of hold this card back, but it's still a very good card. So the first thing is that obviously you need to play this card without any allies, right? So that is, ally chump block is still a strong strategy in Marvel Champions. So, if you're using this card here, you want to go kind of against that strategy and build your own strategy with like a defensive deck. I think it's still going to work fine. So not a big thing there. Finally, this X is equal to your defense. Well, the highest printed defense stat that any hero can get is a defense stat of 3. Nightcrawler has that. Hulk has that as well. Spider-Man Peter Parker has that as well. So at best, with a hero's base stat, you're paying 3 costs to do 3 damage to enemy and remove 3 there from a scheme, which, is decent. It's not like the craziest thing in the world. It's probably a little bit undertuned if it's just doing that. So you have to actually build out your defense stat. Even with the highest defense base heroes, you still have to build that defense stat to make this card worth it, right? I would say that whenever you get to around 4 defense, this card becomes pretty good, 4 damage and 4 threat removal. If you can get the full damage off and the full threat removal off, right? Like if the side scheme only has like 2 threats, or if the minion only has like 2 hit points, you don't get the full damage or full threat removal off. It's probably not going to be as good, but you get the full damage, full thwarting off. Very, very good. And then once you get 5 defense, this card already goes insane. 5 threat removal and 5 damage. Very, very efficient. So yeah, this is a card that you want to build out first. And one could also make the case that when your defense stat is that high at 5, you already won the game. Maybe it kind of depends on scenario and the villain, but you could definitely, yeah, this card is so well balanced. I love that the way that it's designed. I think that it's not overtuned, but it can be very, very powerful late game whenever you design your deck and you play out your strategy planning with this card in mind. It can be a finisher card doing up to 8 damage if you're playing Nightcrawler. The Hulk hero is, most people say he's one of the weakest heroes in the game of Marvel Champions. I would agree with that. I think that he also works very well with this no ally type of build with In Harm's Way, with the Army of 1. And, Hulk probably does not fit in this Ronin suit, but it'll be a fun deck here to have Hulk get +1 defense and Retaliate 1. This is really good synergy with this immovable object to give him that other Retaliate. So you can have Retaliate 2 and go up to 4 defense with just this suit here. You can build your defense even more with, like, of course, the Armored Vest with defense conditioning and all those other cards. So very, very cool, ally, anti-ally, ally deterrent type of cards here, which I love to see. The 4th and final card here that we got is, I think, the least unique out of all of them. It is a 2-cost event here called Get Their Attention. It's a defense and authority event. Here, interrupt defense thwart when enemy initiates an attack, remove threat from a scheme. So one thing to know about this card is that remove threat from a scheme, that's not the best threat removal, especially for just 2 costs. I think it's not the most efficient thing, but it's our first ever defense and thwart event. That is a very, very unique combo of what cards can be. I believe we have like attack, thwart, defense events, like from Gamora's kit, but this is the first defense thwart one. So very unique to see only these 2 traits right there. And this is my favorite time conditioning for defense events. It's when an enemy initiates an attack. So that's pretty good because it's not, you don't have to actually be in the act of defending to play this event here. It just has to be whenever any enemy initiates an attack, right? Even a minion, right? Does not have to be a villain. So if Echo has like a tough styles card, for example, and you have your unflappable and your perfect defense engine set up, you can still play this event when the villain initiates an attack. The tough will soak all the damage and you can remove threat from a scheme. And then since you do not take damage and you are in the act of defending, because this is a defense event with the defense word right there, you have official defense, so you can trigger stuff like unflappable because you defended and you did not take damage. So I do like that it has the best possible time window for a defense event. of when an enemy initiates an attack. However, just a 2 for 3, I don't really feel like it's that good value. I mean, I think there's other better cards in the game that already exist. But yeah, definitely not a terrible card by any means, but probably the most undertuned one of these other cards that we've seen. My favorite one is probably going to be the Army of One. This card is just very, very cool to get those readies, helping protection to get even more readies. I think that protection doesn't really need even more buffs to the aspect. If you were to ask me, even before this Fear and Evil pack, I think the protection and leadership are like pretty neck and neck, but getting all this stuff for protection is pretty nice. So I'm really excited to see what Daredevil will give for Justice, because I think that Justice needs a lot of cool stuff to really buff up that aspect. And I also want to give a huge shout out here to Infectious Zombie, also from our prediction live stream, who had a prediction here that Echo will have some way to get Retaliate. And I think that Echo, you know, she does have this Ronin card in her kit. We haven't seen her entire kit, but she will have a way to get Retaliate with this card, which is in her pre-con deck. So, you know, I'm going to go ahead and give him here the check mark for this. Echo does have a way to get Retaliate. Maybe she'll have another way to get Retaliate in her actual hero cards as well, but she for sure has it in the pre-con deck. So another great prediction there. And then we also have prediction here that Echo will have a protection pre-con. So this was actually voted by my live stream, because I had a poll here, you know, whenever we were live, and no one actually shouted that out. Everyone was saying that Echo will either have a Justice precon or an Aggression precon or like a dual asset precon. But whenever we had the poll, chat actually voted that Echo would have a protection precon. So that's crazy. I believe it was like 30% of the vote or something like that. So yeah, you guys are right. Echo does have that protection precon that we see right here. Finally, the last card that was previewed in Echo's article right here is See No Evil, Hear No Evil. This is the team up card for Echo and Daredevil. 2-cost event, team up, max 1 per deck, hero action, attack, and thwart. So working very well with Echo's improvisation, and Echo can also tuck this card underneath her identity. Choose 2 of the following. You may choose the same option twice. Just do 3 damage to enemy, remove 3 from a scheme. So not the craziest like unique card. It's just doing damage and removing threat. But I think that for Echo, it's a very unique card because it can proc the improvisation right here, where you, when you play, you know, the attack event, you also heal damage. When you play authority event, you can also deal damage to enemy, right? So you get the heal, you get to do an extra damage, and then you can also still choose the option of like dealing 2 damage twice, removing 3 threat twice, or doing a combination of like damage and threat. So definitely adding a lot of versatility there. And one thing that this card kind of makes me think is that I think that Daredevil is also going to have a lot of this type of synergy with attack and authority events, because I feel the team of card to work well with Echo and Daredevil, it's got to work well with Daredevil too, right? Because like this is kind of bland for like just the way that the effect works. But it's fun with Echo, so maybe it's going to be fun with Daredevil and his Sense deck as well. So yeah, that's going to do it for this recap video, guys. That's everything that you need to know that was covered in the Echo article. What do you think about this new direction for Marvel Champions? I think it's pretty crazy that Fear No Evil is really emphasizing that we don't want allies, not just the scenarios. Bullseye kills your allies and removes them from the game. He also has overkill. Electro also has a bunch of overkill. Then the actual player cards, these aspect cards that we're getting, you know, from Echo's precon, also deters allies, right? If you have less allies, cards are cheaper to play. If you have no allies, you get the effects, the constant effect of the Ronin suit off, right? Where you get +1 defense and you get Retaliate 1. So yeah, it's crazy to see that even the aspect cards, the hero deck does not want you to have allies. I'm loving this new direction for Marvel Champions. I think that it's definitely bringing in a new era where other aspects are on the same level as leadership because of such a big incentive to not include allies in your deck. Let me know, guys, down in the comments, what do you think about Echo? What do you think about this direction that Marvel Champs is going into, starting with this Fear No Evil box, the first big box in the current environment? I'm excited for the future of this game, guys. Hope you guys are too. Hope you guys all like this video, and I'll see you guys all in the next one.